Welcome, welcome, welcome to What We Watch. We are talking cinnamon on Tubi today. Welcome, Bryian.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Fantastic. That's what I love. Okay. How you doing?
Good, how are you? Have you done a Spaces before?
This is my first time, so there's no video. It's just the talking, right?
It's just talking,
We
right?
love we love to see it. I didn't put any face on, so that's good.
Me neither. I may or may not have glasses and a bonnet on right now. Who
I
knows?
love
We'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know.
I love it.
But welcome, welcome to What We Watch. This is how we do it here. So Spaces gives us the opportunity to make sure that we can connect you closer to your audiences and really just have the community speak on the
Oh, can
platforms. Yeah, you are listening to the Cinnamon
beautiful.
original motion picture soundtrack. Those of you, please share, feel free. So excited to have you on the show today, Bryian. We are going to chat cinnamon. And now
Yes.
my lovely co-hosts have joined as well. Please follow Bryian, you guys. Let's support our directors. Bryian, is this your directorial debut?
It is. It's my studio feature debut, and it means a lot to me to be on this thing. By the way, before we even go on, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. It means a lot to me to be on the journey with artists at this point in their lives. It Nothing brings me more joy. I'll have Nina Lee come up to the stage with us, and then we'll get it started. Today, we're really just going to talk about you and your journey in filmmaking as a director, as an amazing director, and talk about Cinnamon specifically and your journey with Cinnamon. And we're going to play a few games at the end, Bryian. I hope you're ready. Just very easy games, but they'll be fun. And then we'll let the audience kind of ask a few questions. Does that sound good?
That sounds phenomenal.
My lovely friend here, Nina Lee, once she figures out how to join, is also a fantastic director. You may have seen her on Project Greenlight, HBO Max, and a series of other films. She was in my inaugural film festival this year. Hope to have you at the next one, Bryian. Be amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
she's going to ask a lot of questions too from a director's standpoint. So I think that'll be fun. I was looking up a lot of your earlier work, right? And you grew
Hmm.
up in Leimert Park, right?
Born and
Born
raised.
and raised. So you're home. You're
Yeah.
home. Did you film Cinnamon at home?
No, we actually shot in Atlanta,
Love that.
and they tried to get us to shoot the movie in LA, and I was like, we have to shoot it somewhere else because they're trying to get here. So we have to shoot it in Atlanta or somewhere
Let me
else.
tell you, I teed you up for that one because Nina is from Atlanta. She is Atlanta. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yes. And I
So
love that. And I felt like with the setting like you had, even though I wasn't sure if there was an exact setting, if it was a fictional setting, it still needed to be, I feel, in the South. And so
Yes.
yeah.
I love that it was Atlanta.
So before we dive in, first of all, what an incredible film, Bryian. Like, what Cinnamon is beautiful. I mean, I honestly feel like I am not a film critic, Bryian. I don't consider myself a film critic. I am I guess by definition, but I like to talk about how we experience film and how film makes us feel. And I really had a great time watching this movie. It was just a really great time, Bryian. So thank you for that.
Thank
Is
you.
that kind of your idea for this film? Because I was reading about you, and there was a note that said you are interested in understanding what makes people do bad things. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So I don't know if you saw the note about where I actually decided, like, why I decided to make this movie in general. But much like everybody on here, I'm an artist, and I've always wanted to, make my first movie. It's always been a thing, and I had day jobs, and one of the things that I did very early on in college to try to make money was I worked at a gas station. And so when I was working at that gas station, I just remember looking at my account and never seeing the money stack up enough, and like never truly having enough to even make a short film. And I was trying to make a feature at the time, and all I needed was 10 grand. And so I remember being in that gas station and looking below the counter and seeing that like the register was always unlocked. And I was like, man, how easy would it be to just come in here and rob the place? And me, I'm very straight laced. Like I'm from Leimert Park. Like I'm black. Like I've seen my fair share of things, but but that's all to say that like like I'm I'm pretty like I'm pretty straight laced. Like I'm not a criminal by any means. And the fact that I got this idea in my head to do this thing made me think like how many people go and try to do this thing for that purpose, for like trying to make their dream happen. And so that's where like the idea kind of sparked. And I get kind of I get really excited about like that feeling. And because I had it personally, it made the movie easier.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, I'm already touched. I mean, that's great. That's the point of this interview. Thank you so much for joining us.
Right.
No, truly, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, we're sharing the stage with people that, you're strumming our pain, right? We would like to make the money to make our short film, to have the money to make our short film, and by any means necessary, we're going to get it done. So, so you're very close to this story, right? So you took from your life, which is what we talk about a lot at What We Watch, is, we're telling these stories as directors, as writers, as filmmakers from like our lens, but like our lives, our emotions, our real experiences, right? And so,
Yeah.
we talk about how the audience engages with it. And it's like, Bryan, you have that story that you just told us, right? And that changes the whole experience. Nina, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to agree with you. That was one of the questions I had written to ask. And so, what year was this?
This was
That you were working at the gas station?
this was my junior year in college. So
Could you
I
give us
was
like a timeline of like you seeing this as you worked in this gas station, and then where Cinnamon is now,
Mm, mm.
oh
just in
absolutely oh
briefly?
absolutely absolutely. So this was 2013 or 14, I'm gonna say, and at that time, I had written this movie first as a short film, and a lot of things kind of came together later on. But one thing you'll notice is that like there is some bad money behind the gas station, and the gas station that I worked at, it wasn't ran by a black mob. It was ran by like an Armenian mob. And so what's really interesting about it is that all of these thoughts came from, okay, if I rob these people, what are these people going to do to me? And I thought it was just more entertaining to have it be all black because I write black people better
Exactly.
because I'm
Hmm.
black.
Keep
Yeah,
it that
so
way.
I just
Yes. Period.
yeah, exactly.
That's interesting though, because I was
Yeah.
watching it with my mom, and she was saying how Wally reminded her of someone that's Middle Eastern.
You know what?
So I can't wait to tell her
Black
that.
and brown people, we stick
Yeah.
together. Okay.
That's facts. And I think he's so big and gaudy that it's probably why she reminds him of somebody like that. But yeah, no. So we I wrote that as a short. I ended up making a bunch of projects all the way up until 2016, when I had moved back home at my parents' house and I was trying to figure out what am I gonna do next? Because I had a feature that I was trying to
Hmm.
make that I made a sizzle reel for that failed really bad. Even in Indiegogo, it failed for it too. And and like yeah, I was
Like
like,
we are so
I was trying.
familiar with failure as filmmakers.
We're so familiar. Yes, yes.
Oh, oh.
It was like a 30 grand Indiegogo, and I couldn't get it. And I remember trying to figure out what was next, and I I ended up getting really political that year, and I remember wanting to create this brand of like these comics and short films called alternative horror.
Yes.
And yeah, that ended up becoming my company later on. But I went back to the basics because I was trying to make a feature at the time, and I couldn't afford a feature, and I couldn't afford to do a feature right. So I thought,
Mm.
well, the money that I do have, what can I do with it, and what can I do the best way? And so I made another short film, and I made it like 3 minutes, and it was called Rideshare, and I did that, and I felt like it was a blast in the right direction. So I kept doing baby steps up after my rock bottom, and I made two shorts that were really good, and I sent them around to film festivals. We got a bunch of laurels and stuff, and then eventually I got my manager's eyes on me in 2020.
Mm,
And during this time, by the way I was making money from my short films, I went from being a script supervisor, and then I became a prop master in the industry, where like I'm a union prop master,
right.
which was like a good way to make money and meet a bunch of friends on set that
Exactly.
just ended up working for free. Yeah. And so I made my short films, Chickens and Good Guy with a Gun, and those two shorts got me my managers. And I had written Cinnamon as a feature film at this point, and they read that and they were like, "We think we can get this made."
So if I can stop you
And
there real quick, so this is
please,
2020 that you wrote Cinnamon. We're watching in 2023.
yes,
Guys, I want you guys to know it's a journey, right? Nina Lee, you can speak to it.
Okay.
It's a journey, guys. And thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I just tweeted about how you came up with the idea in 2013. So
yeah,
it's the whole
It's
process.
a process and it takes time and it takes perseverance and it takes believing in yourself. So, and it takes honestly, right? And you've been very, transparent about this, Brian, making money. We got to find ways to make
yes,
money. We got to find ways to, be vulnerable and put our art out there. And it is not an easy task. So thank you for bringing up these projects because that was my next kind of, discussion that I wanted to have with you. I did find Chickens and Good Guy with a Gun. I need to go watch those. Oh my gosh, I'm very excited to watch that. And then Riot Share, is Riot Share available anywhere? I want to make sure the audience is
right
able to
shares.
support you 100,000% because that's all we do here at What We Watch is support, support, support. So let us know.
I love it. Yes, they are all available on althorror.com, althorror.com. You can just go right on there and see them. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yes, they are available.
So, Chickens and Good Guy with a Gun are short films, right? Can you
Yes.
tell me what kind of projects influenced that, or was it your life experiences as well, or a combination of both? I'm sure. Can we talk about like what kind of projects kind of influence Cinnamon, Chickens, Good Guy with a Gun, heck, even Riot Share? And then I'm sure that kind of gives credence and understanding to alt horror as a company, right? Which is short for alternative horror. So, can you talk about
Yes.
that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, like, alternative horror is supposed to be taking current events and mixing them into like horror films. And I won't say that I like came before Jordan Peele, but I made my first short before Get Out, and
Did
then
you just
like
say you came
if the,
before Jordan Peele? Okay, we're gonna
I
get that
did
on
I
record.
did
That's what we'll get on
not
record.
I did
Go
not I did not. What I would love to say is that I felt like it was a zeitgeist at the time. There was just so much happening, everything from like Brock Turner and like all this stuff with Donald Trump, and it felt like we were living in a horror movie, but the horror movies we were seeing were all really like ethereal and just about like the unknown, but the
Yeah,
known was right in front of us. So I wanted to make horror movies about that, and so alternative horror was kind of like this branding of taking what was happening in front of us and putting it like giving it the genre tropes, so to speak. And
yeah,
so with like with Rideshare, that was my first one, and it was way more of just like a horror film that I had read an article about an Uber driver who killed a girl, and I thought that would be like interesting to tap into. And I love that short, but I think the
right.
branding of alternative horror started to change as time went on because Chickens, which is a very personal piece to me, um, because it's about police brutality, and
Hmm.
I hate the police, and you can put me on record for
But
that. but
absolutely, I mean, I put me
Okay.
on record to support that. I mean, what are
yeah,
we
Fuck the
saying?
police. That's how I treat them.
fuck
Period.
fuck the police.
Let's
But
watch Chickens now. Great.
Let's watch Chickens now, right? My cousin, when he was 12 years old, he went and stole a car. And when he was 12, I was 7 or 8. And he went and stole a car, and the cops were chasing him, and he pulled over, and the cops had pulled up, and he was unarmed. And before taking him out of the car, they shot into the car 20 times, and they killed him.
Mm.
And so ever since then,
Mm.
I've always had this sort of a muscle reflex to seeing the police, as any black man does.
Right.
But um, even more so, I just thought that's the sort of thing that just happens to black people. And so that to me is one of my biggest fears. And my work has always been about diving into my biggest fears. And so
Yes.
chickens is just that. And it's like what happens when the cops have all the control, and that's what that film became. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it really did a lot for me. And that was when I found that like the key to making like a success in the film industry is telling stories that are just really personal and hit you hard. It's your vision and your perspective.
Yeah, I really agree. And you use the term personal a lot too, which is what we talk a lot about at What We Watch. It's, we're basically opening ourselves up in our art and we're creating these films and then we're pushing it out to the world to see how they experience, if they feel the same things we do. That kind of thing. I'm not saying we're prioritizing it, but it's definitely a vulnerable experience, right? Because you feel so close. You keep using that term personal to your art because it's what drives it, it's what fuels it, it's how it got here. So I really like that. I think also I was reading with Good Guy with a Gun, similar to Chickens. It was again the same idea. What makes people do bad things? What are the horrors of life as a man and masculinity and toxic masculinity? And Good Guy with a Gun kind of touched on that too, right?
Yes,
Police brutality was in Chickens, and we have gun violence here. We have toxic masculinity here. Those buzzwords that you hear online, but they're meaningful. They're impactful, right? Especially in film, I feel like when we get to tell stories fully, we get a different, relationship with the horrors of our lives, which I think is the power of film. So, can you talk a little bit about Good Guy with a Gun too?
absolutely. Good Guy with a Gun was one that I think hit me even more because it was during a time where so many mass shootings were happening,
Hmm.
and I never thought they were ever going to happen in Los Angeles. And I was like at a at a bar in Thousand Oaks not that long ago. It's called Saddle Ranch, and it was just a normal bar. And I think it was only like a month or two later that that place had gotten shot up by some guy, and I just thought, man, like nothing kept me from being there that night, and that scares the shit out of me. And I think there's something about like how do we protect ourselves when the government won't? And the only way that ends up happening is if you go out and you buy a gun. And so I think what the fear of fear was the whole idea behind the guy with a gun. It's like, well, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a bigger gun, and it's so American, it's so phallic, it's like you take a guy with a 9 millimeter, and the only way you could beat him is to have an AR-15. And I love the vision of the like I love the satire that I was able to bring to that movie, and it was just me noticing that every time I walked into a bar or a crowded place, I was always staring at the door, and I just thought that everybody has that fear. Everybody
Yes,
must, yeah, everybody has that fear,
I
and so I
can't
wanted to play with
confirm.
it. Yes, yes, yeah,
Especially, at the times where these mass shootings are happening and they're like on the headlines every moment you log on to Twitter X Spaces and here they are, right? It's a horror that's kind of faces you, and I think you said that earlier, right? It's the horror that's like basically unknown, but like the known is right in front of you, right? I really
yeah,
like the way you said that because that's exactly what this film kind of captures, Cinnamon specifically. It's like I'm obsessed, honestly, with the opening scene. I'm inspired as a filmmaker with the opening, the prologue, I think is what you call it, the prologue, little black girl in the gas station, I believe it's called, right?
yes,
And I just couldn't get away from, I felt like I was in that gas station with her. I didn't know why she was so anxious. I was like, and so my mind is racing. The minute the movie starts, why does she look so anxious? Is she ready to get off work? Like, what is
right.
happening? So I'd love to talk about that opening scene because that you're already capturing that alternative horror that you've been talking about, the horrors of real life, the things, that we experience in real life, the things that you actually experience in the gas station, just thinking about needing $10,000 to make a movie, right?
Hmm.
Whereas, our protagonist needed money to make it as a singer. So go ahead with that. I'd love to talk more about that opening scene and how we got there.
Absolutely. That opening scene was probably the hardest scene to both direct and to cut of the entire movie because for those who haven't seen the film, a spoiler alert, um, they're in on the robbery. She's in on the robbery, and so you have to play it in a way where okay,
Yes.
she can't be giving the eyes to the guy who's pointing the gun at her, and to say, oh, like there's a man with a gun back in the corner, the abort mission. She has to go through with it and hope for the best, but you have to play at the audience and then also play it with her, and so it was a really hard scene to direct and to edit, to keep the audience in the dark. But I think the thing that helps the most with the film is that she's a woman and it's midnight at this gas station and it's
Hmm.
dark out. And the thing that is the scariest thing is that this guy is just walking in who has a gun on his waist. And it was interesting because we had some male executives who were just like, I don't know, I don't buy her being that scared. And then there were some of
Mm.
my female producers who were just like, no, you don't understand. Like I know why she's scared. And it's like, oh, okay, well then fine, I guess we'll keep it. And it's
Mm.
really great that like
What I heard you
you're
say is it's really important for more female executives to be out here too, is what I heard you say too.
Basically. Because
that
that was never a question for me why she looked
Ever.
so anxious. My biggest question was, where's the plexiglass? And
yeah.
where is like the on duty cop? Even though that's not always the biggest help either, but like, why is she by herself? So I was anxious. I didn't need anything more.
Right. And I think
uh,
Brian, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say without a doubt to the women executives thing, but you go on, please.
Yeah, no, Nina, I agree to an extent too, right? Because I'm really glad I talked about this, and thank you for saying it was one of the most challenging things to film. As an audience, I'm telling you right now, great job, you succeeded. I was very confused, not to confused as to why she was anxious, but I was curious as to why. Was it because she was ready to get off work? Was it because of this? It could be a combination of these things. It could be one of these things. Like, what was it? And that was intentional. As an audience member, I could tell you, I was like, well, okay, is this the standard horror that we have, just being a
Hmm.
girl in the gas station alone, or does she
Hmm.
need to get somewhere? Because I'd be anxious and sweating the same way like that. If I'm late somewhere, I'm like, dang, I gotta get off work, I gotta go get ready, I gotta go to this event. So I was like, does she have an event to go to? So I'm really glad that
No,
that was
ain't nothing
intentional.
open at midnight but legs.
Mhm.
I didn't think
First of
she had no
all,
place to be. I was like,
is
some shit is about to happen to
is
her.
there some judgment here? Okay, I have a few events, and I want to go to a party real late. But no, Brian, I think that's really interesting because it worked for me. I definitely had a ton of questions, and then that was intentional. So for the rest of the movie, we see why she felt that way. It was very layered. None of us could really guess that the reason why she felt this way, because she's obviously worked at this gas station. So she'd worked that night before. She's worked many nights here at this gas station. We can safely assume, but she is planning a robbery with her new boyfriend, which,
Yes,
brings me to my next kind of conversation. And tell me how you feel about this. What
please.
we watch has a pillar. And, most people are coming around on it finally because they don't have a choice. But I always tell people every film is a romance. And very quickly, we jumped into the love story, the romantic story here, Brian. And I think it was beautifully done. I mean, one of my favorite shots was the way you directed and cut when she started singing for Eddie for the first time. And I was like, here we are. Here's the romance, right? We just had a really chaotic opening scene, and then the rest of the movie was chaotic too, but the romance was always there. Can you talk about, as a filmmaker, why that's important and how you integrated that, and why you chose those scenes?
Without a doubt. I'm all about human element, and to me, like you take a Stephen King novel, and the first 100 pages of the book there's no horror. It's all about getting to know these characters and investing in them for some reason. And and then by page 101, something rustles in a bush nearby, and you go, "Oh no, not her! Please, Jesus!" And so I think with this film, for me, the most important thing by the end of the movie, the thing we're rooting for, is that these two lovebirds make it
Yeah.
out. And so their romance is really the glue that
Yeah.
holds all these storylines together.
You guys heard it here first.
Yes, and I
The
love the
romance is the
romance.
glue.
I love romance. Everyone loves love. No matter what, I think what's great about this movie is thank God someone gets shot in the head in the first 6 minutes. Otherwise, the men might have turned it off. But like, but like,
Oh, that's so funny.
yeah. But it's so funny. It's a movie really for everyone. It's a date movie, and I love that a lot of the ending of the film, it brings a lot of like people to tears, and a lot of like men don't want to talk about it, but like it's a fun,
You better
it's a
get
fun
them together.
get them together.
I
That's
think
funny.
I love that you said that. And Nina, did you have something to say? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm actually
Oh,
just
okay.
making a tweet of
Okay.
what you just said.
Okay, great. I love that you said that, Brian, because another pillar of what we watch. It's not really a pillar. Uh, I don't. I probably know maybe one or two people that love horror more than I do as a genre. Maybe you. I may put you up there above me as one that's created a couple horrors. So congrats. But I think that you just hit the nail on the head with there is no story of horror without romance or love or anything like that. Like that's why you get invested in a character's either survival or downfall, right? Or a
Mhm.
couple's survival or downfall, or success story, right? Because there is that human element of understanding the desire to be wanted, the desire to be successful, the desire to have a partner and be loved. And I hate me personally as someone that is forcing everyone to love horror as an art form. We should connect more on that because that's my favorite thing. And I tell people horror is not does it scare you. That's
No.
not the beginning and end of this
Mhm.
conversation when we talk about horror films. It's not was it scary. And I feel like that's just always the conversation. Is it scary? And I'm like, do you guys know that some of the best horror films have just the best kind of character development and relationships and like backstories, right? You get really committed because someone's mom died when they were younger, right? Like, there's just so many things like that. So can you talk a little bit more about like Cinnamon as a the horrific elements and the romance too? Because I know you feel me.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Um, with horror film in particular, I think you have the best, like you have this genre like with tropes that are full of either violence or tension and whatnot that all kind of it's like salt. It's like salt bringing out the flavor of fat, and the fat is the best part.
Hmm.
And I think that like Ari Aster, for example, like Hereditary is one of the best dramas I've ever seen. That like
Period.
family dramas, amazing,
And acted phenomenally. Oh my God. Wow. Like,
without a doubt.
ugh.
And so I think that you use these tropes and you have this sort of like this stage with preconceived notions where everyone's like, okay, I'm gonna go see some gore. Okay, I'm gonna go see some like some violence that's different than what I would see usually. And with that, you're able to use those tools in order to tell a story with way more like veracity. And I love that. That's what I love about horror. I love that you never know what you're going in for, but you can end up getting something with a lot more depth. You just
Yeah.
yeah.
What are
It's the
some horror
most
projects you love? And I know, you can jump right in because, They Clone Tyrone. It's not necessarily a horror, but definitely horrific, definitely a horror thriller, whatever you want to call it, drama,
yeah.
fantasy. It was everything to me. But can you talk a little bit about some of the horror projects that you love? I heard you mention Hereditary. Ari Aster, maybe as a director, we can
Yeah.
talk about him too because he's a sicko in the most beautiful, talented way.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, what are some horror projects that really kind of maybe influenced you or inspired you or just some that you enjoy just to watch?
Hmm. I would say. I love really sleazy horror movies from the 70s. Like I love Carrie. Carrie is
Yes.
so good, and Carrie is both a feminist narrative, but also it's from a male gaze, so it's so sleazy. But at the same time, it's talking about um, like what happens when like a girl comes into womanhood, and I love that about it. But at the same time, it's just a horror movie that just like tells the horrors of high school and whatnot.
Yep.
I love that. Love that movie.
And revenge,
Hmm.
right?
And revenge. We
Oh,
love
revenge is
Hmm.
revenge.
always so sweet,
Yes,
so nice.
we love revenge. I stand on the pillar of loving horror movies that also dive into the thriller space too. I love this film called Miracle Mile. It's one of my favorites. Um, it's about I don't know if you ever heard of Miracle Mile. They shot it on Miracle Mile if you guys are familiar with LA, but it's just about this day that this guy randomly gets his phone call on a corner, and this guy's like, "Hey, we're about to blow off all of our wads. We're about to shoot off the missile, Dad. It's happening. So get to the other side of the hemisphere." And this random guy just gets the call, and he has to convince people that a bomb is about to drop, and it happens in real time over the course of like an hour and a half. It's fucking nuts. Great movie. Great
Ru-
movie.
Runtime is so important on horror films too, right? Cinnamon was about what, an hour 20?
Hour and 28 minutes.
Yeah.
Love that.
Great length. We love that
Perfect.
length.
Perfect length, right?
Yes,
Let's
yes.
talk
Exactly.
about it. I love a good 90-minute horror. Go ahead, Nina.
Oh, that's what I was saying. 90 minutes is perfect.
Right, right. I mean, a directorial debut as beautiful as this, and we're going to jump into the business side of things because as beautiful and flowery and, just really cool from an outsider's perspective that filmmaking and, being a movie star and things like that can be, there is just some really ugly sides of the journey, right? Or not so great sides. Maybe they're all beautiful, depending on who you ask, what perspectives people have. But I like to talk about that, and you kind of already, said one of them regarding, male executives saying, why did we go this route
Hmm.
with this woman at a gas station, this young black girl at a gas station, by herself, closing at 11. It's like the answer is right there.
Hmm.
But
Right.
I guess we have to talk about it. Um, but what were some challenges with getting Cinnamon on Tubi, right? Because, on Twitter, the relationship with Tubi is very kind of, um, it's very like whimsical and exciting and easy to watch stuff that I'm not really invested in as far as like one of my favorite films, and I feel like that's such an interesting box to put Tubi as a business in, right? Because I
Oh
watched
yeah.
Cinnamon 2023 and I'm like, what this is beautiful. I think Nina was like, is this the best movie I've ever seen? Like, I don't, this year, like, I don't. So, can you talk about a few of the obstacles? Just getting the first of all, the relationship with Tubi, the funding, any of the actors, because I'm definitely going to talk about one of the actors. One of them is my friend, so I'm really excited. But go ahead.
Hmm. Yeah, that was one of my questions. Did you all fund it and then Tubi bought it from Tribeca? How did that process go?
Yeah.
So what happened was very kind of serendipitous. I had a meeting with Village Roadshow, who produced like The Matrix and Joker and all those places. I had a general meeting with them, and they had read Cinnamon, and they were like, "Yo, we really like this script. We don't know if we can do anything with it, but we're starting up this slate of films with Tubi." And I was like, "Tubi?" And they were like, "Yeah, Tubi." And I was like, "Okay." And they said, "Well, we'll let you know if we have a spot for it." And I was like, "Yeah, you let me know." And then they had went away for like months. And at the time, I was like, I don't know if I want to make a movie with Tubi. But we had taken this script all around town, and I had noticed in that period of time the amount of people who talked about Tubi and the amount of people who were on Tubi, and how this sort of streaming phase during the pandemic, where everybody had like every streaming service, was kind of like dying down. And so Village Roadshow had come back to me in like October of 2021, and they were like, "Hey, do you do you want to make Cinnamon with us? We actually have a spot for it. We could shoot that movie in December of this year. And I said, December? That's not enough time. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, do you want to make that movie? You can direct it. And I had already been through so many different studios and production companies who were trying to foster the movie to become made. And they were the first ones who were like, we'll get you this movie done and we'll get the budget for it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And the December was never a real thing. It was always going to be like the beginning of quarter one of 2022. But
Hmm.
um, I had this this thought in my head, like, how am I going to make a movie that like is made with like commercials and everything else? And then I kind of had this come to Jesus moment where I was like, all right, some of the best films I've ever seen in my life, I saw for the first time on USA or on TNT or on like TBS.
Right.
And the first time I saw Pulp Fiction was on Bravo. And I just think about like people putting on something in the background, but then a moment really grabbing their attention and them saying, "Okay, like let me sit down for a second. Let me not go to the bathroom during this break and let me get sucked into this movie." And
Right.
so I was like, "All right, Tubi." I don't know if everybody knows this on this call, but Tubi is actually the second largest streamer in the country. Um,
Correct.
yes, right
Correct.
below Netflix.
I
Hmm.
did not know.
The
Wow.
catalog is insane, you guys.
Yes, the catalog is the same, but also the viewership is like second to Netflix, which is
Hmm.
crazy, but it makes sense because yeah, like it makes sense because if it's free,
Yep.
it's free,
Right. I was gonna say it's accessible.
it's accessible. And so I was like, all right, let's do this thing. Because what it meant to me as an independent filmmaker was that, I made short films that I put my heart and soul into that, like, they got like 20,000 views. They got seen by some people. But, like, what about making something that, like, everybody can watch? And you think about if I made a movie for Paramount Plus and I was like, hey, go watch my movie. They're like, oh yeah, for sure. I don't have Paramount Plus. Maybe when I get the free trial in like a couple months, I'll do that.
Right.
And so Tubi was like, no matter what, I could tell you to go and watch it, and you go watch it.
Absolutely.
So I was like, that's a good place for independent filmmakers.
It
And you know what's so
100%
funny?
is.
I was telling my mom that I was going to be speaking with you, and she hadn't seen Cinnamon, and so my family was like, "Well, put it on." And so I put in CINN, and then the first search recommendation, my bad, was Cinnamon on Tubi,
Hmm.
Beautiful.
and I thought that was really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
It just popped right
accessibility
up.
the accessibility really matters, right? I remember attending a Deadline Contenders Hollywood event, and Quinta Brunson gets up there and she says, I sold Abbott Elementary to a network so that my cousins could watch it in jail. And it was like a funny like conversation, but it's also very real, right? Like accessibility to our art, especially as independent filmmakers, producers, showrunners, whatever it is a huge conversation, and a huge importance in like understanding the journey in the industry as an artist, right? So I think it's a huge deal what we're talking about, because yes, this is what we watched, was very easy to set up. Anybody can go watch Tubi, and Tubi's almost groundbreaking in the sense that people pay to not watch commercials and ads. That's literally what people pay for in all their streaming services. And
Hmm.
Tubi was like, what if we don't even make that an option? it's
Right.
it's almost genius. Like, well, it is genius, and it's
Yeah.
just it's earth shattering. I don't even think people realize what's happening. Tubi was like, we're going to be the second biggest, and yeah, you're going to get commercials, and you're not even going to really feel it. I don't even remember any commercials. I couldn't tell you any commercials. My brain knows how to process commercials and dump them. Sorry to all my commercial actors in the audience. I know a couple of you there. Love you guys, but I think the movie was just that much more perfect, and it's funny that I wanted to say that to you on this call today and say that it's very hard to make a movie with so many kind of there's so many things. There's so many like tricks and lies and betrayals and intertwining stories, right? Between all the characters, right? There's so many relationships. And that can sometimes make a movie feel very disjointed. And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I just wanted to watch the first hour and a half of this, like, of a 3 hour film that has so much going on. But you did it perfectly, in my opinion. I was invested fully every time I saw, I forget his name, the cowboy hat, and Damon Wayans. I was invested every time I saw Pam Grier and her son. I was invested every time I saw Haley and I forget the actor's name as well, but
David.
Cinnamon and Eddie. I was just invested in everybody's story, no matter what, which is really important in film, right? So, uh, can you talk a little bit more, because you kind of already talked about it, but kind of just you gave us chapters in Cinnamon, right? And is that because of the Tubi understanding the commercial, or was that already written like that? What changes were made?
It was already written like that. I think the
Mm.
only change that was made when they picked up the film was that I sort of changed the ending a little bit to where it ends in the car, and then also, um, so we shot more movie, which is this is talking about the business side of things. The movie was originally like it was always paced fast because that's the way it was written, but we there was more originally in the Jody and Eddie section in the first half of the film, and they wanted to get to Damon Wayans faster because he's Damon Wayans and he's the person on the marquee. And I even saw in like I think like two Twitter comments were just like, "What a waste of Damon Wayans," because they didn't get to that part yet in the movie. So it was like it's like he's in the
Oh,
movie.
Twitter, Twitter, Twitter. Oh,
Twitter,
buddy.
Twitter, Twitter.
Oh,
Right.
God.
Yeah. But what's great about it is that they were like, "Hey, Brian, like it is the trick of making a movie and having expected like notions about what's going to happen with the film. You have to get through these people faster um, in order to get to the Damon Wayans section." And so what ended up happening was I ended up like kind of making that love story even shorter than it actually originally was,
Mm,
uh,
mm, mm.
which which honestly made it better.
Yeah.
It made it better,
Mm.
and yeah, and it made it. You fell in love with him fast, and then you got into what happened behind the scenes of the actual robbery, and that made it that much better. But
That's damn good directing, Brian. I'm telling you. Like, just the
I
fact that you're
try.
telling me that this was the shortened version of their romance,
Yeah,
I I'm fully impressed. I think an unsung hero of this film is my friend Rafi. When I tell you I saw him in, what's his name in the movie?
Romeo.
Romeo.
Yeah,
Romeo, an actual very pivotal character to me, because especially when he said, "Hey, I listened at 5 a.m." and that's what really made it the ending hit very hard, right? Because
yeah,
he, fulfilled his promise, and he's just, I talk to people about character development, and Rafi never really developed. Romeo never really developed as a character. He was who he was, and he can still have a very, heavy impact on the film in the ways that he did, and I love that he was there, and I was beaming when I saw him. So I think another exciting part of just celebrating independent filmmakers and being on Tubi and talking about this is just seeing my friends on television, right? And just
yeah.
seeing them do a fantastic job. So thank you for having Rafi. How did you get Rafi on there? I'm gonna ask you. I can ask
I
him too,
I
but
love that man. And
okay.
every time he's in town, I gotta go out and I gotta hang out with him. He's hysterical, and it's funny. Something that I love is not seeing what a person did before they audition for my movie,
Mm,
because a lot of times you get preconceived notions, especially about bigger actors, and by the time you get to like the Denzel Washingtons or the Reese Witherspoons of this world, like they're not auditioning for movies. They just take offers,
exactly.
and so you'll never see them read for the part until you start rehearsing the film. And so with Rafi, what's lovely about him is that I hadn't really seen him on BMF. I hadn't seen him on a few of the other shows he was in, and he told
Black
me
Light.
Black Lightning. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen him in that show, and
Mm-hmm.
he told me that he only ever played bad guys. and he never really played comedic roles. And
Mm.
he's so funny, and he played the role so good. And when I saw his audition tape, I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. And it's
Oh,
funny, and funny enough, he was the first person that Tubi approved to cast in the movie.
oh my
Wow.
God.
The
I love that.
the
Oh,
very
that
first
makes me
person.
so happy. I was beaming in my bed as I watched that. I was like, oh my God, Rafi.
He's
And it was
great.
just so exciting. It was so exciting. Go ahead, Nina.
Oh no, he was just hilarious. That's
You,
interesting. I could see how he would get boxed into playing bad guys. And so I think that's what's so great about directors like us is that
yeah.
we don't have to box someone in. And by doing so, we're able to really see their true artistry as actors. And so great choice.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think I love that, right? What we watch, we talk a lot about that. It's just filmmaking is such a collaborative, art, which is why I think it's so unique and so special to me, and I'm so passionate about it because you really do like you prioritize and you look out for your community and you look at people as human beings as they're creating their art and as they're looking for work, right? I think it's amazing. I want people in the audience to sit with what you said at some point in your career, you become the Denzel Washington, the Reese Witherspoon, the Viola Davis, and you're not auditioning for roles prior to getting offered them, right?
Yeah.
You can read your lines after, but at this point, people want you in the movie because you're a star, right? Margot Robbie, producer, actor, all that. It's like no, we want you in the movie, right?
Yeah.
We don't care if you've read any. We don't need to see your reel, whatever. It's good. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing that. Tony nominee. You got a Tony nominee on a movie on Tubi. How exciting was that? What was that journey like? Haley Kilgore, right? Is that her name?
Oh, Haley Kilgore. We love Haley.
What a
I hope
lovely,
she.
lovely, lovely lead. Truly, truly, she did amazing. But talk to us about that relationship.
It was something, Haley. Haley's wonderful, and she came like she was someone that I found through my managers. They sent me over her tapes, and I hadn't seen the show she was in either. And the moment I saw her face and I heard her sing, I was like, oh, I think she might be it. Because originally we were going in a direction of trying to get um, like a Doja Cat in the film, or like a Chloe Bailey or someone else. Which is, I know now that you've seen the movie, it seems crazy.
Wait,
I
wait,
know.
you're serious? Like actually Doja Cat or like a Doja Cat?
Doja Cat was the first person we went out to.
No
And
way.
I
No
kid I
way.
kid I kid you not. I kid you. She's the first person we went out to. And if you want to hear something funny about Hollywood and
Yes.
agents and stuff, is that when you go out to someone like Doja Cat and you don't like, if I don't have a relationship with her, like I didn't at the time, her agents get the script, and before they even read it, they go, "How much are you going to pay her?" And you tell them the amount, and they say you're going to have to pay her more money before they even give her the script. And it's you can negotiate with an agent for about 2 months before they even give Doja Cat the script. And
Right.
so we didn't even get that far, because here's the thing: if they give her the script when you offer that low amount of money, and she likes that script, she's gonna say, "I don't care how much this pays, I'm gonna do it."
Right.
And so an agent will be like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna make any money off of this thing. I'm not gonna do it."
Right.
So really, we came across a bunch of brick walls, because number one, the movie was low budget, and number two, it was Tubi, and so a lot of agents were just like, "No way, I'm gonna put Chloe Bailey in this movie." And so we got really lucky with Haley Kilgore, and we needed to size the movie up with a couple of like big leads, the people who were recognizable, and so we had our Damon Wayans and our Pam Grier,
And the Pam
but
Greer's, right?
right, but we needed to get someone who like was worth fighting for her voice. And so I had fought to make sure that Eddie and Jody were going to be no names, or people who weren't as big, because I wanted people that I can mold into an
Mm.
image, instead of just like someone like, if I got Doja Cat in the movie would be so much different. It
Mhm.
would have been so much different.
Oh my God, so different. And Bryan, you just touched my heart. I just want to highlight what you just said. Someone that we can help and, share their voice and amplify and highlight and, give them a voice, right?
Yes,
And help them show their voice. That's so important. A woman, right? Specifically, a black
yes,
woman, even more specifically, right? Like,
Yes.
we movie stars aren't our crutch. And I love that you almost said that that was secondary to you. You're like, actually, let's do two no names. And of course, let's decorate it from the industry perspective. We know what we need to make a movie. You know, we do have jobs and we have to work and we have to feed and pay rent, right? We have to feed our
Mhm.
families and pay rent. But I like that you almost made that a secondary kind of approach because you are so close to the art that you made, and you're like, I know what I want here, right? But
Mhm.
of course, we'll have Damon Wayans and Pam Grier, and they did a phenomenal job, and they were both extremely great in the movie. And I love the casting decisions there as well. So I love that you shared that. Thank you so much for saying that because I did not know who Haley Kilgore was, but when she was
Mhm.
started singing, I was like, well, she's somebody.
Yeah.
Because there's no way this hasn't been discovered. I'm like, Bryan, all kudos to you, but I'm like, no, someone has discovered her before Bryan. And then I'm like, Jodie Nominee. She's very, very good. I was like, is this recorded over? Is this her voice? This is crazy.
That is her
Um,
voice.
I want to tee up Nina for a couple of questions too, and you take it away a little bit, Nina. Nina specifically loves to guess, especially as a director. And Bryan, you'd love her work. I love what she does with colors and scenes and environments in all of her work. It's absolutely incredible. She really knows how to evoke feeling. And
Mhm.
she likes to, you can speak for yourself, Nina, but I just love to see her guess what projects inspired or influenced or, helped the directors make their current directorial debuts. And
Mhm.
so, Nina, can we talk a little bit about what you felt when you watched the movie and see if Bryan had any of those in it
Yeah, well,
from a directing perspective?
we spoke a little bit about this on Twitter already, but
Did you
I
guys?
know,
The
but
audience
yeah, I
didn't see it.
yeah, probably not, but I do. I love looking at films and trying to see what films inspired directors. One, I think it's a great way to it's kind of like a sample to me. So, when you hear a sample and you're like, oh, I really like this song. And then you end up discovering like a whole new artist because of who this person sampled. And so I love with films kind of doing the same thing. And what I can figure out. And then also, I might not even guess something, but it could, like how you talked about Miracle Mile. I've never seen that, and I can't wait to go watch it. And so when I was watching this, I know I saw a lot of True Romance, which is one of my favorite films. And so I guess even though I know the answer to this, you can still talk about it a little bit.
Yes. Okay, True Romance. Yes, that was 100% one. Just in it that it's a Bonnie and Clyde that is just they steal from the wrong people, and I love that. It's interesting that while I was writing the short film version of Cinnamon, it was such a back of the mind sort of sort of a subconscious decision to kind of like use that as an off point. And then I think when I was actually trying to write the movie and I was doing my research, which I always do with movies, like I'll go and like I'll rent like 20 heist movies or like 20 movies about love turning to
Hmm.
violence. And True Romance was one that like I've already owned, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to rent this because it's already on my shelf. And I watched like a few different times and trying to figure out why do all these characters in this ensemble work so well. And so
Yes.
that definitely was a big one for me for sure.
I
What's
think
another
another
one you saw,
one that
Nina?
I had was I don't think it influenced the entire film, but the bus scene. I saw a Bronx Tale in there.
Ah, that's
No
Oh,
you,
coincidence.
I think it's a coincidence, but it's funny because you are like the 30th person who has mentioned a Bronx Tale, which is crazy to me because I haven't watched a Bronx Tale in like 6 years, and I really love that movie. But is there a bus scene in that movie that's where it's like,
It's the
so,
first time he sees her,
oh my
and he
God,
just keeps staring at her, and then she finally reacts to it and is like, "What?"
that is
And he's,
so funny.
yeah.
have either of you seen Last Black Man in San Francisco?
I'm bad. I'm glad.
Of course.
I have not seen that movie, and
Oh,
I've
I
gotten
should
to
have.
a point where I'm really good about telling the truth about when I haven't seen a movie.
No, I love that.
No, yeah.
No, I still like to lie a little bit. No, I only bring it up because there's a bus scene in that you kind of, to A Bronx Tale, to Cinnamon, you kind of expect there to be romance. And in Last Black Man in San Francisco, he's on a bus, but he you don't have that moment of like, oh, he sees a girl he likes. It's actually the exact opposite, which I just loved so much about that movie. So it's interesting though. I love that you made that parallel, Nina. I would have never thought about it. But a lot of movies have that. Not a lot, but I can probably, if I sat down and thought about it, there's enough movies where somebody meets someone on a bus and or a train, right? And it's like the romance kind of starts there. And I like the
Yeah.
way you did. Go
Which
ahead.
is great because
I
I'm not
love
even
that.
gonna talk to nobody I meet on the bus. I'm gonna be like, you on this bus just like me, bye.
Right. And
No, I'm just kidding, guys.
And that's what I was gonna say. I love the way you did that, Brian, because once again, as I'm watching this scene on the bus, I'm like, wait, do they know each other? Do they not? They do. They do. They know each other. Wait, do they? Well, how well? Wait, do they have history? Were they together? And I just love that. Like, I really went into watching this movie with, okay, you're going to tell me the story. I'm not going to make any assumptions. I'm going to go on this journey with you. And so I really just had a lot of like exciting questions for all of these scenes. Is that what you wanted out of that scene? Did you want us to kind of, who knows, what is their relationship, or was that something that the actors brought out of the script?
It was definitely a thing where we wanted them to because we're just jumping time, and
Right.
if you I I toyed with putting the 3 months later thing, I mean 3 months earlier thing in there or not putting it in there, to just as a confusing thing, like because we're just jumping.
Right.
But I decided to put it in there because just like let me just make sure I don't freak people out. But yeah, it's supposed to be a little confusing. It's like, wait a minute, what happened after this? Didn't we just see them do this
Mm-hmm.
thing? Yeah,
How did we get here?
right,
I
right.
like that. Yeah, it was disorienting, but in a really, I think for me, in an effective way. You brought up Carrie, and Nina, if you have one more film, we can talk about it too. But you brought up Carrie, and it's so interesting that you brought up Carrie. My relationship with Carrie, I like that you say like sleazy is so gory, very feminist. I love all the words you use. I was very young when Carrie came out. Carrie was the first horror film that my parents allowed me to watch. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, honestly. And I begged them to watch Carrie. I begged them to watch Mothman Prophecies and Carrie when I was like 6 or 7 or 8 years old. And they were like, no, you're going to get nightmares. To this day, I I watch horror movies all the time. I've seen, I love them all, and I think Carrie is the scariest movie I've ever seen, but in a good way. Right now, as an
Wow.
adult, I be obviously that's colored by my relationship with as a child. Right, my brain has processed Carrie as the first horror film and just the most terrifying movie I've ever seen. But
Hmm.
it's still kind of like maybe it's part nostalgia. But as I watch it now, obviously I don't have the same kind of fear attached to it. But it's just so it is still scary to me because female rage, woman's revenge, the things that happen to her, just understanding teenage life. I think it is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen still. Just because it's fun though now. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. So we're going to play. Oh wait, Nina, do you have one more movie? Because I know y'all talked
Oh,
about it. Yeah.
I guess just going back to Tarantino,
Okay.
Pulp
Perfect.
Fiction. Even though Tarantino only wrote True Romance, y'all, he did not direct it. I think it was Tony Scott that directed it.
Yes,
Um,
Tony Scott did True
I
Romance.
like Tony.
and then
Well,
yeah, so Pulp Fiction.
absolutely. I think absolutely. I would say more than Pulp Fiction though.
Mm-hmm.
There were a string of Pulp Fiction ripoffs that happened afterwards because it was such a hit.
Mm, right.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those movies are actually very, very good. One of which is Go. I don't know if you've ever seen Go. But
I'm gonna
Go,
watch
Oh,
it now.
that's why I love these conversations.
oh, Go is fantastic.
That's why
So
we're
Go,
here. What we
yeah,
watch.
Go is Doug Liman, who did Edge of Tomorrow. It's like his first movie, and Go is a movie where it's about this group of like teenage friends around Christmas time who work at this supermarket, and all of them have intersecting stories. And it's like, I think it's like four different storylines that happen, all
Mm.
connect, and it's like we all go back to the same starting point each time, and I love that. It's just like different perspectives, and so
Similar to Cinnamon. Yeah,
exactly,
that's
exactly,
I can totally understand. Wow.
yeah, and so I think where Pulp Fiction does it twice in the movie, where we go back to one particular moment in order to expand about how another character saw that scene. It's so Akira Kurosawa, and it's like
Hmm.
the killing as well, the Stanley Kubrick movie. It's very much so like different perspectives on one thing that happened. And so Pulp Fiction, like you were saying earlier, like sampling movies, it opens your mind up to so much other stuff. Like Jackie Brown opened me up to like Coffee and Foxy Brown and all those other movies.
Yes.
Love that.
And yeah, and Pulp Fiction opened me up to just so many movies. All of his films opened me up to a lot of other films. And I think the great thing that happened with Pulp Fiction is that there were offsprings, and mine is also one of them, where like 2 Days in the Valley, which is another movie that's like a Pulp Fiction like rip off a little bit. Not rip off. I just say rip off as in like, oh, it was doing the same
Right.
thing,
Not a
but
negative
just
connotation. Yeah.
not negative connotation. Just jumbling up the storyline and like over the course of the movie, jumping different
Hmm.
characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, but to that point, Go. If you watch Go, Go was a lot more of
What year
something.
did that come out?
That was 1999, I think,
A
Yeah,
and
it
nineties
it's
was.
movie.
yeah,
Okay,
great
I'm gonna
movie.
watch that.
It's really fun. I love it.
I think the 90s just had so much more fun.
Yes.
And I think that's what I enjoyed about your film was it did give me that 90s nostalgia that I feel like we're kind of missing right now.
Do you know what
Um,
it is?
they were having so much fun.
We
No,
peaked in
tell
the
me, what
90s.
was it?
We peaked in the 90s. I'm gonna you mark my
I
words
agree.
on this podcast. I'm gonna make a T-shirt that says it that we peaked in the 90s because of like movies looked the best in the 90s. Movies had the best pacing in the 90s. Like now, I don't know what happened. We got to a point where movies were like 96 minutes and they were amazing. You didn't lose a beat. And now, for some reason, comedies need to be 2 hours, and I don't get it. And I think that we just like music was at its finest in the 90s. Like everything was the best, and then we got
This is
digital, and everything and quality just started to just go downhill.
oh, I love this anti
I was an
love.
early 2000s music fan. I can't lie to you.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
it
know
was
if we
the top
peaked
of
in the
the
90s,
bubble.
but I was born in the 90s, so I mean, here we are. Maybe the world
Yeah.
did peak at that time. I will say though that
The
you're at
90s
least
had some good shit.
period.
Yes.
I feel like people that were teenagers in the 90s had a really good time. Or like early 20s, they had a really good
Oh yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, I think now you're cemented as a director that inspires other films. I think, in the next 20 years, and it's not a podcast, it's a show. I'm like a big stickler about that. It effectively operates as a podcast, but like Welcome to What We Watch, I call my stuff a show. It's a little different. But I think you're cemented, Bryan. I think you've inspired two directors, filmmakers, writers on the stage with you now. We're gonna have a couple people come up and ask you a few questions too. But I wanted to say too that think bringing up Pulp Fiction was impressive because as you said it, Nina, I was like, well, who wasn't, influenced by Pulp Fiction at this point, right? And I think a lot of my favorite conversations with, independent artists like you, Bryan, is that a lot of directors, kind of start out in horror. I think there's almost this formulaic approach to horror, not saying that everything is the exact same in horror, but there's a formula that you can like start off as a director to like create horror films. And I think I love seeing that journey. And I think a part of why I have what we watch is Nina touched on it very perfectly with music, and I want to kind of expound on it. When you hear a song, right, and those of you in the audience understand this fully because we all do this. When you hear a song, you always ask, whose song is this? And then what do? You go and listen to their other songs. You go and see if there's an album. You go see if they have an EP. And I want my company, my brand, my passion, my community at what we watch to understand that we can do the exact same thing for directors. Did you love Cinnamon? Then go watch Bryan's other work. You might love those too. Why wouldn't you, right? You're effectively the musician, the artist here in film, right? And I just want people to be just as excited about watching, whatever Quentin Tarantino puts out, or an Aaron Sorkin, or a Nia DaCosta, or a Nina Lee, right? Like, and when you see this one movie that you like, you don't just look at it as, oh, I really like this movie. You say, hey, oh my gosh, what else is in this director's filmography? So we can find everything of yours at althorror.com, Bryan. How do you feel
Yes, you
about that?
yes you can. And I just is this before I just wanted to make sure that I said this has been one of my favorite um, shows that I've ever been on. I've been on podcasts. I know this isn't, but I this has been fantastic, and I know we're
That
not done just yet, but thank you.
that makes my day. Thank you so much. I'm gonna cry. I can't cry right now. Um, I'm gonna play a couple games with you. Nina, do you have any additional questions? You can honestly jump in the game too. We play a couple short games, and thank you so much. We'll wrap this up in about 15 minutes. I promise, Bryan. Um, and those of you in the audience, please request the mic and come on up if you want to ask Bryan a couple questions. We're so excited for you to join us. One last comment about the movie, because I could talk about it for 5 hours, which is longer than the movie itself. I love, 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 love the scene. And I think if you see me rip it off in my movie, just know that that's where that came from. And it sounds like you're not opposed to ripping off. But and I don't know if we ever learned his name, but as he was describing what Eddie looks like, it's Puerto Rican, right, at the very end, the
Yes.
way that the writing and the directing and editing was, it's genius. I'm surprised. I want to think about where I've seen that happen before, because I know I have, and I think it's been in television, not in film. But as he's describing this person, and we're hearing the camera shutters, right? And we're seeing the buildup of, like, okay, he's black, he's short, he's tall, he's male, he has a scar on his eye. I've watched that scene at least 4 times now. It was just really, really, really well done at a really, like, high tension time. And so you kind of took us back. So it was, like, very important to keep the audience invested in it at that time, because we were, like, in front of people getting tortured, right? Damon Wayans getting tortured. Hey, Kilgore is getting tortured in this scene, and then he's like, "Wait, no, answer this phone call." And I loved the way you had him speaking about someone that he saw. It felt like when you're profiling someone for a police report, but you took away that kind of element of it. So I love that scene.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you, thank you, thank you.
yeah,
And it's one of my favorites too.
yeah. Nina, did you absolutely love that too? I enjoyed it so much.
Definitely. Yeah, just all of it. That's why I had to make that tweet that I did. And it
Girl,
formed so well. And I had so many people reach out to me and DM me saying, like, thank you so much for that recommendation.
I mean, you came out the works like, is this the best movie? And we've seen They Clone Tyrone. We've seen a lot of great movies. I mean, I'm having a great time with
Yeah, I think
Twitter.
2023 is going to be, kind of
Yes.
like the 90s. I feel like this year,
Period.
even more so, we've got some fun movies. And I love that. And, I love prestige. I
Yes.
love fun. Um, and I feel like the movies we've gotten this year is all of that, cinnamon included. So it's a good time.
We're
So
having a
yeah,
great time. So I'm going to rapid fire you some this or that questions, Bryan, and no pressure. Some are easier than others, but you'll see the cadence right now. So I'm going to ask you this or that. Hold on one second. Let me go back. Action or adventure?
Adventure,
Romantic or rom-coms?
romantic,
Historical or science fiction?
historical,
War or crime?
crime,
Mm. Superheroes, supernatural.
neither.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Supernatural, supernatural, supernatural.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Thriller or horror?
Thriller.
Reality TVs or game shows?
Uh, oof. I'm gonna say it depends on the reality TV, but reality TV.
Okay, wait. Pause there. What reality TV?
Like there is like creme de la creme of uh of like Nathan for You, which is technical, or like the rehearsal. Like that's amazing, right? And
I
you
don't
can,
even
or
watch reality TV, and I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Maybe I do watch
yeah,
reality TV.
there's some creme de la creme, or like sometimes 90 Day Fiance can catch me.
All
Um,
right, now.
Hell yeah.
Jasmine,
but
I see you in the audience. Look, my social media manager is on this call with us, and I tell you what, she is a huge reality TV fan. She's like, "When is our reality TV segment going to be more robust?" And I'm like, as the What We Watch girl that doesn't watch, that's going to be very hard for me to talk about it. But we'll get some people on. Let's keep going. Musical or animation?
um, animation.
I honestly hate that one because like I'm picking animation too, but I love a good musical.
Me too.
Um, comedy, romance, comedy, action.
Comedy romance.
Okay, drama or comedy?
Ooh.
Comedy.
Oh,
Comedy.
okay. Last one. This one should be easy. Horror or suspense?
Is that easy?
And I don't.
Maybe it isn't.
No.
Give me two movies. Give me a suspense movie and a horror movie.
Ooh.
I'll tell you what. I celebrated suspense in. Oh, damn, what was it? Talk to Me. I watched Talk to Me in theaters, and 70% of that film is waiting for something to happen and it never does. And it
Yes.
was fucking terrifying, honestly.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa, I think this just unlocked an understanding for me for horror that like a lot of it is the anticipation. Nothing even has to happen and people are gripping their seats terrified. And then, you just build the sound, right, which is the currency of all horror. We know that. And it just like builds and then still nothing happens. And
Yes.
Talk to Me had so much of that. So I think that was like very suspense. But then horror was The Last Voyage of Demeter, which I just watched, and they showed you everything.
I will say suspense then.
Wow.
I will
Okay.
say suspense.
What about you,
Yeah.
Nina? You had some comments there too.
I'm gonna go with suspense.
Really? What why are you going with suspense?
Because I don't like movies that deal with like exorcisms, and I feel like that is horror. So it's just better for me to just say suspense. Because as soon as people start talking about the devil, I'm checking out.
A lot of it is I love the Conjuring universe, and
Oh
yeah,
hell no.
yeah. I have my hard boundaries too, but I love the Conjuring universe. That's
No, I
insane.
love scary shit. Like I love zombies, but like exorcisms, I'm like, oh nah, that
I
shit
think
might jump into me. Get out of here.
Thank you, Brian. Second game is easy, super easy, but a little bit more like involved. I'm going to tell you a mood, and you could tell me a shot either from Cinnamon or a scene from Cinnamon or a TV show or a movie, like whatever you can think of when I say these words, right? So, for instance, I'll say first thing you think of when I say sexy, and you give me a scene or a movie or whatever. So, let's start with that sexy.
Oh, let's see. That scene in Queen and Slim where
Mm.
Jody and what's his name they're having sex in the car. That is some of the
Mm.
best black love I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh my God, a celebration of Queen and Slim. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Hilarious.
Let's hilarious. I don't want to say my own movie now because
No, you
I
can. You absolutely can. This is a cinnamon space.
okay. Damon and Jeremy in that office when the what he's saying that Heather gave him the money and he's squirming. That to me
Heather
was hilarious.
Heather was also very funny in this movie, like our token white person. You know how I say token black person? She's our token white person.
I love
Very
it.
good in that. Scary.
Scary. I'm gonna say Good Time, the movie Good Time, which
Okay.
is
Mhm.
I think that sometimes thrillers can be so gut wrenching that they get scary,
Yep.
and Good Time scared me.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Great
yes,
example of that.
yes.
Sad.
When spoiler alert, when a certain somebody in the movie gets killed, or we think he's killed, that always I remember watching the movie at ABFF and at Tribeca, and people seeing what they didn't think they were going to see and going, oh, no, and that to me is just like it's sad for me as like the father of the movie to see the thing that I'm putting everyone through for the next like like 10-15 minutes, but I love it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I love that you plugged in cinnamon. That's what I like.
Hmm.
I do that with a lot of my interviews. So thank you so much for that. Did you enjoy those? I hope you
I
did.
did. I
I love
did.
those.
I
Okay, good,
enjoyed
good,
those
good.
quite a bit.
Excellent, excellent. So I want to give everybody an opportunity to come on up and chit chat with Bryan, ask him a couple questions. If you have or haven't seen Cinnamon, no shame there. Actually, tons of shame. Watch Cinnamon on Tubi. But anybody want to come up and ask some questions? Nina, do you have any questions? Just kick us off.
You know what? I do. But someone else can go first. They've been listening so patiently and enjoying and soaking up all this knowledge. So go ahead.
Let me see. I'm letting some people up. Anybody want to come up and ask some questions? Don't be shy.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Okay, period.
Where is it? Kevin Garnett.
Yes.
That's the
How
question. My favorite uncut gems guy? Is that who
That's
we're
what I was
talking
gonna
about?
say. He's really in his cinephile bag. Because, like, when I was watching Uncut Gems, I was like, "Is this that basketball player?"
Kevin loves movies.
Oh, okay.
Kevin loves movies, and he came onto this thing. He was actually one of the people that kind of created the slate at Tubi because he went to Village Roadshow and was like, "We should do a new version of black exploitation films because I love those." And then they're like, "That's a great idea, Kevin." And then it went from there. So yeah, Kevin's dope.
I
And
love that.
that motherfucker is tall. You watch TV, you watch TV, you have no idea how tall these players are. I mean, that motherfucker is tall. I am 6 foot and I am at his belly button.
Wow.
I
Motherfucker
love
is
that. Is
tall.
I wonder how people felt on set with him, honestly. That's probably I'm talking about Uncut Gems.
Oh yeah.
That you're saying that from a directing standpoint. No, I love that. I think I have quite a bit of friends in the sports world, and we're working on a what we watch sports, but people do love movies. Like athletes want to be in movies, rappers want to be in movies. Like I have these conversations all the time with my friends and colleagues. They're like, I want to be in a movie. I want to be in a TV show. I want to produce a show. I want to fund a movie.
Oh,
And so
where
those, I'm a connection.
where they at?
She's like, where they at? I need 50 racks. Let's do it. No one wants to come up and ask questions. Okay, I got a couple questions, Bryan. What
Please.
was the most challenging part, not of getting this film to audiences, but just you as a director on set creating it?
I would say it was really hard to cast the movie.
Mm,
It was very hard casting the movie
what made it
because
hard?
what made it hard was that you know there's people who tune in to Tubi to watch movies, and they like what's gonna make someone click on a movie. And so a lot of times the people that I had in mind for the movie were not people that like Tubi was like no one's gonna get excited about that person. Well, I get excited about that person. They're like, no, we don't. And so there would be times like I can't tell you the amount of people who auditioned for James. People who actually because they wanted to do the movie self-taped for the movie, like big people. For example, and I'll just tell you this: the person who almost played James was Bow Wow, believe it or not. And
Okay.
No. Okay, you can't just throw Doja Cat and Bow Wow at me in these spaces.
oh, I know, oh, I
and,
know,
and Chloe Bailey. That's so
oh, I
funny.
know. Bow Wow was the funniest thing. He ended up not being able to do it last minute, but when I first heard Bow Wow, I was like, I don't know, man. I love Romance. I love his movies, dude, but I don't know. Like I love Bow Wow, but I don't know. And then he self-taped and sent over an audition, and everyone who was a naysayer was just like, you know what? Actually, Bow Wow may be able to do this. And so it became this thing where like I really like Jeremy, but
Yeah.
the studio is like, if Bow Wow wants to do your movie, you should probably go with Bow Wow. And then by the stroke of God, Bow Wow was like, I can't do the movie at like in like the last minute. And it was we were 2 days into shooting the film, and Jeremy was shooting on day five, and we hired him, and he flew into Atlanta on day either three or four, and he shot his first scene, which is when he's got the gun on Eddie in the apartment. And
Mm.
that was the first scene he ever shot. So it was stuff like that, just like shooting the movie so quickly. We only shot the movie it was technically 20 days, but we only had 18 and a half days. And
Wow. Wow,
yeah,
wow, wow.
yes. So shooting the
Nina
movie
knows
got
all
tough.
about that.
No, I
Yes,
don't.
I'm sure.
I'm trying to. I have done shorts and commercials, 3 days.
Well, yeah, your shorts take 3 days. Can you imagine a feature? Jesus Christ, that's crazy.
I'm
you're gonna
trying.
get your
So
feature.
this is all really
You
beneficial.
you heard
Yeah,
what Brian said. You're gonna get your feature.
you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
get your
echo what he
feature.
said. Absolutely.
Matter of time. Um, but yeah, no, that was I think the hardest thing was just the fast pacedness of everything. Having to really work on my, like, just always having to, I'm trying to think of the word, be on my tippy toes
Yeah,
and
pivot.
whatnot.
Yeah, be on your toes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think,
yeah.
and that's what I was kind of saying, Nina, that you understand that. I was at your panel recently on Project Greenlight, and I think that's a lot of the shared challenges for all the directors on that project. Was it's like we had very little time and a very small budget, right, Nina?
Yeah, we had a day.
Jesus,
And you were
So,
given an incomplete script,
right.
right? A portion of a script or something. Yeah.
So,
man.
um, so yeah, I can't even imagine with the feature, but that's what those moments prepare us for. So your shorts prepared. That's the whole reason for shorts. They prepare us for our feature. But I also just think shorts are really incredible,
Me too.
because they tell stories in a matter of minutes. So I can't wait to go and look at your shorts, Brian. Where can we find those?
Alt horror.
Althorror.com. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's right, althorror.com. I've been writing
Tweeting
a,
stuff out.
so I want to be able to put that in the Twitter thread for people to easily find.
There you
Absolutely,
go.
absolutely. And follow What We Watch Film TV, www Film TV, and you'll get all this information. This will also be on our website at whatwewatch.net. We have a couple of speakers up to ask you some questions. But Brian, yeah, I definitely just wanted to celebrate that you overcame those challenges, and here we are, and you're talking about this movie, and we're having a great time, and it's a really uniquely poignant discussion to have at this time regarding the strikes and being an independent filmmaker in 2023, when we're getting all these really great movies and we're all affected in very different ways. And so it's really nice to be able to talk. I attended the Blue Beetle premiere last night, and of course the directors there talking about it, but also making sure to highlight, right, the difficult position a lot of actors and writers and everyone is in because of what we're going through. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey, because this is what makes it possible. It's these conversations that get people to watch your stuff and get people to continue to watch your other work. And I hope that you can be at my next film festival. It'll be my second annual film festival. And I'm glad that Nina loves short films so much, because that's what I do at my film festivals. I do a series of short films. So it's a little different from your other. I've been to plenty of film festivals out here in LA that do short films, 30 minutes, but I will do, a 6 minute to about a 25, 30-minute film. So really excited to maybe show Chickens. I mean, you're a feature film director now, Brian, but maybe Chickens, Good Guy with a Gun, or Riot Share, any of those. I'd love to. Do you continue to do any short films at all? Would you
I'm
continue to do that?
I'm trying to shoot another one, but also it's just I'm in a matter of time with this strike. I'm waiting for the strike to be over so I could sell my
Right.
next thing, which I
Right.
can't speak about right this second.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah, it's everything's up in the air.
Understood, understood. We have a couple of audience members. Welcome to What We Watch. This is Brian, the director of Cinnamon on Tubi. Louis, how are you? Welcome. Do you have a question for
Hi,
Brian?
I'm good. Appreciate being on the mic. I think the only question, it's funny because I was gonna ask like, oh, what's the hardest habit to do when you were producing this, but I think you guys kind of covered it. Um, so I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to figure out other questions because I just came into this space to see like, how a small budget film functions because I'm trying to be, a aspiring director and writer, and these spaces are very important for me to hear out. And I guess, since I'm new, any tips and recommendations on, I guess, what to watch beyond just your film, but like what helped curate, like what films help curate your type of artistic, I guess you could say, like, motif, or like what helped
Mm.
curated you to make the film that you got right now?
Right. I would say you want to watch the classics, but even better than that, man. I will say that you should figure like there's you don't have to make your life story, right? But you should figure out something in your life that always plays in your head, either when you dream or when you're driving around town and you think about something happening in life, whether that's it could be something based with trauma, it could be something based with happiness, anything at all, just something like really important thing to happen in your life. And you should make a movie out of that thing. And it doesn't have to be so straightforward, but you can like just place yourself in some characters, you figure out what the genre of that movie is, and then after you do that, you say, all right, this movie is about that time that I went and I'm gonna just use myself. We went and grab a fucking gas station or something, and then you'll go and take that and you go to Letterboxd and you go into like list and you put down best movies, best heist movies, best romance movies, and I would just take those top ones and I would watch those movies and try to figure out how they structured their films. Because to say what movie you should start off with, it's really hard. Because I've been watching movies for a long time, and I think really you don't. It's really nice to watch a lot of films. I would make a point to watch so many movies a week, but just really the most important thing for you as a filmmaker and your first movie is that it's something about you and it's your perspective, because everybody can make um, just like a regular old heist movie or a regular old this movie or that movie. Your perspective is what makes something interesting. Um, so yeah, that's my
Mm, mm,
best advice.
No, that's
mm.
really helpful, because at least for me right now, like, when you mentioned, think of something that comes in your mind like every single time, I always thought about my high school and how it's like a majority minority like high school. So it's like that's I always complained growing up, looking at high schools, I'm like, why is it so white? They don't look like my school.
Yeah,
But it's very
yeah.
helpful, man. Appreciate it.
And I'll tell you
I
what. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just say, I'll tell you what, Louis. You're not alone in that, and a lot of people have felt that. So you make that story, and people are going to relate to it, and that's what makes a great movie. So
Absolutely.
Planning on it.
there you go.
It's
Appreciate it.
good. I
Yeah.
love this conversation. It's really the foundation of what we watch, right? Because it really is. We're storytellers, filmmakers, directors. We're storytellers, and the stories that we tell are of our experiences. Whether we, you know, make a film where it's like, what if you robbed the gas station? You don't have to tell us if you actually did or not, Brian. It's fine. But like, what if you did? Right? Um, and and so you take these real life experiences, you take these real feelings and these real vulnerable moments that you have, and then you put them on screen. Brian just inspired me. I think about London every single day of my life. I was just telling one of my best friends. I was like, I wake up and I'm like, I want to be in London. And I decided that I'm either gonna create a play in London because theater is really huge out there, or I'm going to film my first, film in London. And that's exactly what you do. Like you take whatever's burning inside of you, the passion, the experiences that really stick with you, the meaningful moments, the meaningful people, and you put that, directly into your art. So I really like that answer. Tatiana,
I'm snapping my fingers.
Hello.
thank you. This is my
Hello, Brian.
Hi.
this is
Um,
my sister.
Hi, Tatiana.
Am I? Go
Speaking
ahead,
of
babe.
beautiful moments and beautiful people, what would you say was your favorite or most memorable part of filming and directing Cinnamon?
Mm.
I um I will say that there's certain things that you when you're shooting a movie, like like if you're getting what you want, okay, great, but you never like you think you know it's gonna work on set in post, but you never got 100% of it. And I think that when I was shooting the movie, and whenever David, who plays Eddie in the movie, whenever he would look at Jodie with the eyes that he gave her, I was like, oh, that's gonna work. And it's so funny that when she's singing, like, because I was the way that we shoot in the alleyway when she sings "The House of the Rising Sun,"
Ugh, perfect.
I
Perfect scene.
I love that scene. I'd always planned for it to be from perspectives, and I remember like I shot like hers first, and I couldn't get her to come out of her shell in the first like couple of takes. And I was like, all right, give me 1 second, let me pop over to David real fast. And I love what she was doing, but it wasn't just like there just yet. I needed to find the answer, and I needed to be in her space. And I remember shooting David and having the camera directly on him, and he's looking into the camera, and then I just said she sings because she wasn't there when she was actually singing. Like he just made that face, and he was blown away, and I was like, oh my god, that's what I've been missing. I've been missing the fucking reaction, and so I came back in and I had Haley sing again, and I just thought about cutting between like her singing, and I got her to that point at that point, but her singing and his face, and I was like, oh, that's gonna work.
Wow.
That's gonna work.
A little tidbit of, for the audience about, film and post, right? It's the
Yeah,
journey too, right? It's a journey, but it's exciting.
yeah.
Uh, Thank you for asking that, Tatiana. Any other questions for Bryan? I love that. Yeah. What was your favorite moment? What was a really exciting moment? I like that. Any other questions? No? Well, Bryan, I think we have had the most beautiful conversation. Thank you for saying this is your favorite show. You are my favorite too. Shh, don't tell anyone. Um, we're really, really excited about Cinnamon on Tubi. We're really excited for your next feature film. Again, remember, guys, if you listen to a Doja Cat song and you like one, and you're like, I'm gonna go listen to a couple other ones. So give that same perspective and intrigue and curiosity to directors and filmmakers and writers. If you love their work, go and find other ones. And we can close this out. You can find Bryan obviously here at Alt Horror. Click on the top of the space and click his ad. You can follow him on there. He is Bryan MKJ. Is it MKJ? KMJ?
KMJ, yeah,
KMJ on Instagram. And I think we can, just follow and keep up with your body of work and celebrate you on althorror.com, correct?
yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryan. And all of this space, if you weren't able to do it or able to join it, please make sure that you can tap in on whatwewatch.net and tweet us or Instagram us or message us and let us know how you felt by hashtagging what we watch. Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
night. Happy What We Watch Wednesday.
Yay.